We're going to continue on with DVD number 2 for home health aid orientation. In your orientation packet, the in-service training, on page 2, toward the bottom, where it says the letter I goes over payroll. It says see attached payroll calendar number 4 in your attachment packet. This gives you the pay period when it starts is a circle. When the pay period stops, it's a square. And then the actual pay dates are gray. And if you notice, it's every other Tuesday the whole year through. Our office manager is in charge of the payroll here at Twin Oaks Home Care. Any questions regarding payroll should be directed toward the office manager. If for some reason the office manager isn't available, you could speak to myself or you could speak to Dawn, and we would be able to help you with the payroll issues. Conversation should take place between Monday and Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Don't call on a Saturday if you have a payroll question, or a Sunday, because no one's here at the office and we won't be able to access your records at that time. Letter J, handling complaints. All complaints regarding employees, patients, or their families are to be reported to the office immediately. Don't wait 3 months and say, hey, we had a problem in a patient's home. If we don't know about it, we can't fix the problem. So the sooner you let us know, the sooner we can try to fix the problem. K, cell phone usage. You are permitted to have a cell phone. However, the phone must be turned off, or it must be on silent, not vibrate, during your working hours. You're not permitted to receive incoming calls on your cell phone. This also includes text messaging. You may use it during your breaks. If there's a problem at your home and your family needs to get a hold of you, they are to call the office line, and then the office in turn will contact you at the patient's residence. No family member is to call the patient's home. None of your family members are to call the patient's home directly to speak to you. All conversation goes through the Twin Oaks Home Care office. If you are a supervisor, your cell phone must be kept on at all time, or your pager, because there are times when the office needs it to get a hold of the supervisors and speak to them directly and speak to them immediately. Letter L, it talks about lunch breaks. We follow the federal labor laws, and it is your responsibility to make sure that the patient is safe whenever you take your break. Breaks are not documented or assigned, so it is your responsibility to take your break. If you are working a shift up to 4 hours in duration, you are entitled to a 15-minute break. If you're working over 4 hours, then you are entitled to a 30-minute break. You may not get all 15 minutes at one time, or you may not get all 30 minutes at one time, especially if someone does smoke. They can take a 5-minute break several times during the course of their shift. Again, just make sure that the patient is safe. Make sure that if they're in bed, that the side rails are up. Make sure that a phone's beside them. Make sure that their medical equipment is near them where they don't have to, or they're not going to be getting up. So our goal would be to keep them off the floor even when we're taking a break. Next letter is M, our documentation. You must sign in and out each shift on the monthly time flow sheet. So if you look at the next attachment, you're going to see the monthly time flow sheet. You put the date, the time that you arrive at the patient's home, and then when you leave, you will sign out the time that you are leaving. You need to then sign your name. Some of our patients, their insurance requires signature verification. The last column, that would be where the patient or the family member would sign. That's to verify your times, your date, and that you were there. It's important to remember that if you're scheduled to shift 9 to 3, that you sign in at 9 a.m. and you sign out at 3 p.m. If you got there at 8:55 and leave at 3:05, you don't put 8:55 to 3:05. You only write the assigned shift time in that box. The daily task completed in the patient's home must also be documented on. It's the daily task flow sheet. And if you flip one more page to the next handout, attached number 6, you'll see the daily task flow sheet. Everything that we do for a patient is listed here. There's some abbreviations as well. The times and the tasks that you complete must be accurate. You cannot change your scheduled times unless you speak with the office. All documentation must be in black ink. We're not permitted to use blue, green, red, or any other color. Documentation must be completed before you leave the patient's home every shift. If we go down the daily task flow sheet, you'll see where the first one is prepared and served meals. If we prepare meals, then we're going to put a check mark in that box. Next is feed the patient. If we actually fed the patient, we put a check mark in the box. If the patient fed themselves, then we leave that box blank. Turn and reposition, range of motion, exercises, assisting with ambulation. The next box down says assist with walker, cane, or wheelchair. And if you assist them with medical equipment, you can circle which medical equipment you're assisting them with. You can put a check marks in the box, or you can put WC for wheelchair there. You can put a W for a walker, or just a C for a cane. So I wanted you to understand that there are some abbreviations that are on this sheet as well. The next one is bath, full or partial. If you give them a full bath, you put an F in the box. That's head to toe. If you give them a partial bath, just their hands, their face, maybe underneath of their arms and in their groin or perineal area, then you will put a P. That's a partial bath. The next box says bed, chair, tub, or shower. That's where they receive their bath at. And you'll see the abbreviations beside it. B is for bed, C is for chair, T is for tub, S is for shower. So you can just put one letter in the box and everyone will know exactly where that patient got a bath. If the patient refuses to take a bath for you, you don't just leave the box blank. You want to put an R in there. And it's very important because you're giving yourself credit. If you put an R in the box, that means you did your job. You offered to give them a bath. They refused. Now, anytime someone refuses, any parts of the plan of care or any services that we're providing, there must be a phone call that comes into this office to let us know that the patient refused. It's their right. They're allowed to refuse, but you need to follow up on it and call the office and say this patient refused this. That way, the supervisors here can get a hold of the patient to inform them of the possible consequences of their refusal. Okay, next is N, and that goes over the medication profile sheet, attached number 7. We have the patient's name, their medical record number, the medication they're taking, the first column. We have it divided into 4 different times in the day when they can take their medication, for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or for bedtime. The registered nurse that fills this out will sign it at the bottom and they will date it. This lists all medications that the patient is currently taking, starting from the top of the sheet. All medications are taken on an as-needed basis would be written at the bottom of the sheet, and then they come up. When a medication is changed or added, you must call the office and speak to the office prior to writing on this form. When a patient comes home from the hospital or doctor's office, you're to call the office if there are medication changes. Remember, patients and families are responsible for all aspects of their medications. We are only to observe that patients are taking them correctly and to notify the office if they are not, or if the patient refuses to take their medication. And sometimes there's a good reason as to why they refuse. Every time they take this green pill, they get nauseated. Well, the green pill is too strong for them. So you call the office, they're refusing it. We get a hold of the doctor, he switches it to a different pill. The patient's happy, the patient's safe, and they're getting what they need. Breakfast is usually around 9 a.m. Lunch is around noon. Dinner time is around 4 to 5 p.m. and bedtime's around 9 p.m. at night. So maybe like a 9, 1, 5, and 9 schedule. We need to be looking at this to make sure that the patients are taking their medications. You'll look for the pill box in the home. Someone will show you when you get oriented into the home where the pill box is located. And then you need to look at this paper. If you're there 3 to 11, at 3 o'clock, you need to look at it to see if anything's coming at 5. And then you need to look and see if you have to give them anything before they go to bed. Number 2 under medications is the PRN daily medication flow sheet, and that's attached number 8. It's the daily medication flow sheet. It's used for as needed medications that are not in the pill box. Say someone takes Tylenol for headache or for fever or for pain. Say someone takes Antivert, which is for dizziness. They don't take it all the time, only when they're dizzy. Something like Compazine for nausea. They're not nauseated all the time, but when they get nauseated, those would be listed at the bottom of the medication profile sheet, which is the one before. And then you would jot down here the time that the patient took that medicine, the date, the time, the medicine that they took, why they took it under other, and then you would put your name there. This is so that a patient doesn't overdose on medicine. Now say you're working till 3 o'clock and at 2:45 the patient tells you, I have a headache. You help them with their Tylenol. You document it, 2:45 p.m. You left at 3. The family came back home at 4 o'clock. They tell the son and daughter, hey, I really have a headache. Well, the son and daughter can go to our chart, pull this out and say, when was the last time that mom or dad got Tylenol? And they would see that it had only been about an hour ago that they had already had 2. They can't have the next dose until 9 o'clock that night, especially the 500 milligram strength. It's 2 tablets every 6 hours. So that's a very important paper. Families like it when we use this, and it's going to keep everyone straight so that the patient doesn't take their medications too close together that are not already in their pill box. Number 3 under N, using the pill box. Our policy at Twin Oaks is that all patients must use a pill box for all consistent medications. Consistent medications that are injections, liquids, inhalers, patches that you put on their skin. There will be a special note on the medication profile sheet, and it'll be marked over here on the side down the margin that the medicine's in the fridge, or that it's a nebulizer, because it's not in a pill box. It's going to be marked on this side here. It's the employee's responsibility to look at the medication profile sheet every time you go into a patient's home. Before you assist them with their medications, you have to have a full understanding of it and make sure that nothing has changed. Next letter is O, which is the confidentiality or HIPAA policy, and that is attached number 9. This is actually 2 pages in length. It talks about the patient's rights to their health information. And then the second page talks about the disclosures of health information, when we must share patients' information back and forth, and with who and why. Their information belongs to them, but it also belongs to us. It's a joint ownership. All patient information is to be kept confidential. You're not permitted to disclose any information about your patient without speaking to your supervisor or without your patient's agreement. For the example, the pharmacy calls you for directions and your patient asks you to go ahead and give the pharmacy directions to their house. The patient would be in agreement in that situation to disclose that information. Next is our hand washing, letter P. It is the single most important thing that you will do, not only for yourself but for the patient, because you could easily carry something home to you or to your family if you're not washing your hands before you leave. It must be completed when you first enter the patient's door. The first thing you should do is go straight to a sink. It also needs to be done before you leave. If you use the restroom or if you assist the patient in using the restroom, you need to wash your hands. Before you make them a meal, before meal preparation, you need to wash your hands. And then if there's any type of wound care, you have to wash your hands before wound care and after wound care. Before, so that you don't get any bacteria in the wound. After, in case you have bacteria on your hands from the wound, so that, again, you don't take that with you. Hands should be washed with as hot of water as tolerated by the employee. Soap should be used each time you wash your hands, and it needs to last from 60 to 90 seconds. Your actual scrubbing of your hands should last 60 to 90 seconds. And I just read earlier this week that if someone in the home has a cold or some type of illness, you should wash your hands for 120 seconds, which is 2 minutes. If you're using liquid hand sanitizer, you should follow the manufacturer's recommendations and instructions on the bottle. Some of them say you can use it 10 times before you must use soap and water. Some of them say you can use it 15 times before you must use soap and water, or 5 times. So depending upon, I guess, the strength of the alcohol that's in it, or whatever antibacterial properties it has, different companies produce different types of soap, the liquid gel. You would just have to read the bottle and it'll tell you when you should use actual soap and water. Next is letter Q, communication with the office. Regular office hours are from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that's to handle all the routine aspects of Twin Oaks Home Care. The phone number all employees are to call first is the 724-438-1936 number. That should always be called first. And then if you get an answer machine, it'll tell you which cell phone to call. The office is available by phone on evening, nights, and weekends. If you're calling in the evening, night, or weekend, it should be for an urgent situation only. Maybe there was a call-off or a problem in a patient's home, a medicine change, a change in the patient's mental or physical condition, patients going in and out of their home from running errands. It shouldn't be for special requests or for questions about payroll. If someone called you and they left a message on your phone for you to call them back from the office, we should get that kind of a phone call. If there's a call off and we call, say, 5 different employees that live in that area that could possibly help with covering that call off, a couple of them will call back right away normally, and we're able to cover the call off rather quickly. Well, then we have a couple people that, in a couple hours, they get home and then they call us. And that's fine. We will tell you at that time if the shift was already covered or not. If you get voicemail during office hours, go ahead and leave a message, and the office will return your call as soon as possible. If it is an urgent situation where you do need to speak to someone immediately, follow the directions on the voicemail to contact the appropriate cell phone. And every answering machine or voicemail that you get will tell you which cell phone to call. You're not allowed to just leave a message on a machine, especially if there's a problem in a patient's home or if an employee's calling off. You can't just leave that on a machine, because a lot of times we're out in the community, we're out seeing patients, we may be at conferences. evenings, I have children as well as some of the other girls here that are helping take call. We may be at soccer games, baseball games, football games, practice, cheerleading, whatever. Make sure that if you need to speak to us and you get an answer machine, leave a message on the machine and then call the cell phone. That's the most important thing I can tell you through the whole orientation process. That's number one. Letter R, notes in the patient's homes. It's very important. There's times when we do need to communicate to other employees in the patient's home, but this can only be done if you first call the office and get permission for the note. You will put the supervisor's name and then your name at the bottom of the note so that everyone knows that the office was contacted. A couple years ago we had problems where one girl was writing a note in a patient's home and she was writing about another girl. Well, we don't believe in that, and it's considered like a backstabbing. So there are no notes that are left in patients' homes at all unless the office is contacted. I want to know what the content of the note is going to be. Is it because so-and-so's blood sugar was low this morning, and when we first come in the next day, we need to make sure that it's checked right away, that it's not missed. Again, there are times when we need to communicate with other people on other shifts when we're not going to be there, and it's important. It could be a matter of life and death. Just so everyone understands that, no notes are left in the patient's home unless they talk to a supervisor first. If that happens, then we'll follow a disciplinary process that's already set up. Letter S, contact with patients or families. Contact outside of the regularly scheduled shifts by employees by phone or by going to their house is not permitted under any circumstance. And if that happens, there's a disciplinary process for that as well. Our insurance, our liability insurance, our bonding insurance, our workers' compensation insurance, it only covers the employee during their actual scheduled shift times. And when employees take it upon themselves just to stop in and see patients and families on their own, that's when problems happen. That's when the patient falls. That's when something gets broken in the home or stolen out of a home. And honestly, this is to protect you, the employee. Because when you're there and something like that happens and the family gets a lawyer, they're coming after you. They're not coming after me, because you weren't supposed to be there in the first place. Letter T, inside the patient's homes. We're not permitted inside the patient home if no one is home. There's times when the family will leave and they're going out shopping and they just want you to stay there and clean until they get back. Absolutely not. If they're leaving, we leave too. All you got to do is pick up the phone, call the office. Hey, I'm at so-and-so's. I've been here for 3 hours. I'm scheduled another 3 hours. Everybody here is leaving. They want me to stay here by myself. That's not going to happen. You can go out in your vehicle and wait until someone else arrives, or we may even just go ahead and send you home at that point in time. Because what will happen is if you're there and you're alone and you're unattended, and then later on something comes up missing in the house, and with the elderly people that we take care of, they can get forgetful. That's why they have us in there, because they need help remembering things, how to do things, how to get dressed, how to bath, how to remember to take their medicines. They forget where they put stuff, so they could forget where they put their watch or their ring or their necklace or their wallet or their checkbook, and then they're going to say, oh, Twin Oaks girl was here by herself the other day, and then they're going to blame us. Well, we can eliminate that altogether by you never being at a patient's home when no one's there. Plain and simple. Letter U, criminal background verifications. Background checks are completed on every employee at Twin Oaks Home Care, and it's kept in your confidential personnel file. There are recent state laws that have predetermined which employee misdemeanors and or felonies we are not permitted to hire. We do not discriminate in our hiring practices. However, we do follow all state laws regarding which employees we are able to hire. V, direct deposit. All employees of Twin Oaks Home Care are required to have direct deposit. This can be deposited into a checking, savings, or most recently, just as of January 2007, ADP, who handles our payroll, automated data processing company, they're out of Pittsburgh. They have what's called a total pay card. It's like a MAC card, but it's set up with its own account, and instead of the money going into a checking account or a savings account, excuse me, it'll go right into that card and the account that's in that card. And you can use it anywhere, just like a credit card or debit card. W, the workplace violence policy, which is attachment number 10, and you have that. It's a policy change dated June the 16th of 2005. Effective immediately, all acts of workplace violence must be reported immediately to your supervisor. Whether it occurs inside or outside of a patient's home, you must state the following: where it occurred, who initiated it, what time it occurred, if there was any injury or potential injury, any precipitating factors, and what action, if any, you took as an employee following the Patient's Bill of Rights and the federal HIPAA law and any state and local laws which may pertain. So what this is saying is, you may be at a patient's home and someone can commit a criminal act against you, and there are certain things that are in place that need to take place. It's each individual's employee's responsibility to report any acts of workplace violence to the Office